For this episode, I had the opportunity to do a collaboration with the new channel, Dark Echoes. As you'll see in this first story, they produce fully live-action, narrated true scary stories. I had the pleasure of narrating this first one, and I encourage you to get the full experience and then head over to their channel and check out more. You'll be glad you did. The remainder of the stories will be directly after, and I'll include the link to Dark Echoes' channel in the top of the description. Enjoy. This story was submitted by Catherine Anderson. It took place in 2016. A few years ago, my grandparents passed away, and in their will, they left me their old house. It was a 2-story, 3-bedroom fixer-upper just a short walk from a popular beach. It had been sitting empty for a while, and it needed a lot of love and attention, but eventually it got things in pretty good shape. This was back when Airbnb was first becoming mainstream, and I figured I would give it a try. The house was perfect for it. It had 2 spare bedrooms and a luxurious jacuzzi tub in the guest bathroom. To my surprise, it did really well. I booked one of the rooms almost every night on the weekends, and I'd often have both rooms booked. I went out of my way to make sure every guest felt special. I'd make breakfast, give them directions, anything I could do to ensure that they had a great stay. And I was pretty good at playing host, for the most part. I got a bunch of great reviews on the site, kept an accurate booking calendar, and was eventually recognized with the title of Superhost. It's a silly, meaningless title, but I was proud of it. My mom, however, was always worried, saying I was asking for trouble inviting strangers into the house. At her insistence, I installed a commercial-grade double-cylinder deadbolt on my bedroom door. This version required a key for locking and unlocking from either side of the door. It was a hassle, but it eased her mind. Plus, I assured her that through the website, I was able to look at every profile before I accepted any renters, to see who might be a good fit and weed out any potential creeps. That system worked well. At least, it did until tonight. I found myself with the rare occasion of 0 bookings. I decided I could use the night off to relax and focus on a little self-care. I celebrated my free evening in the best way possible. A bottle of wine, Netflix on demand, and an evening-long soak in that full-size jacuzzi tub in the guest bathroom. I was already 2 glasses of Pinot deep and 3 episodes of my show into my night when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of my front door opening. If I wasn't between episodes, it probably would have gone unnoticed. I put down my phone and listened. I could hear someone creeping up the stairs, and whoever it was weighed a lot more than I did. I blew out the candles surrounding the bathtub and waited in the dark. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought it might explode inside my chest. The person reached the top of the stairs, shuffled past the bathroom, and continued down the hall. They seemed to slow at each of the guest rooms before moving closer to my bedroom, which I had left unlocked since I was home alone. Scared to make a sound, I reached for my phone and texted 911 my address, name, and situation. It only took a few seconds before my phone vibrated with a text message. It was the phone company telling me 911 messaging wasn't available and to make a voice call instead. I could hear the footsteps leave my bedroom and start down the hall toward the guest bathroom. I quickly drafted an email to myself in hopes of creating a distraction and hit send. I heard my laptop faintly chirp from down the hall. The footsteps stopped and headed back towards my bedroom. I immediately called 911 and relayed my situation. Dispatch told me officers were 5 minutes away and to stay on the line until they arrived. 5 minutes? I couldn't wait that long. I had to do something. I stood up and the dripping water seemed to echo throughout the room. Every drop seemed loud enough to give away my presence. I had one more chance to create a distraction. I grabbed my phone and reconnected to the Bluetooth speaker. I hit play on the music app and heard music from the kitchen downstairs. I then heard the man race down the hall, hesitate, and then clomp down the stairs. I wrapped myself up in a towel, tucked my phone into the fold, and got out of the tub. I crept out of the bathroom and moved quietly down the hall. I knew that once I was in my room, I could lock myself in and wait for the police. Only one problem. I didn't have the key. It was in my jacket, which was hanging on the railing of the stairs. I crept back down the hall, tiptoeing as quietly as I could on the squeaky wood floor. And then the music stopped. I froze. A moment later, I heard him coming back up the stairs, and I rushed into a nearby closet and hid. My heart sank as I listened to him looking for me. He walked over to the bathroom and stopped at the door. I imagined he saw the fogged-up mirror and the wet footprints on the tile. He then continued down the hall towards my bedroom. I was crouched in fear, praying the police would arrive before he found me. I heard him enter my bedroom, pause and look around, and then slowly move toward the closet. When I heard him throw open the closet door, I knew that was my chance. I leapt out of the guest room closet and raced for the key. I grabbed it from my jacket and ran back toward my bedroom. When I reached the door and saw his face for the first time, I realized I knew him. He was a recent guest who had stayed with his wife. There was a tense moment where we both stared at each other, and then he rushed in my direction. I slammed the door closed, locked him inside, and ran for my life. The police showed up 20 minutes later and arrested the guy. Apparently, he was sitting on the bed, calmly awaiting his fate. He was cooperative and admitted everything. It turned out he had made a duplicate copy of the house key while he was out shopping with his wife. Since then, he had been checking the Airbnb website to find a night when I had no bookings and I was likely to be home alone. Despite all of this, I still rent out my rooms using the Airbnb site. I did, however, make some security upgrades, including keypad locks that reset with every guest. But I shudder to imagine how things would have gone if I didn't have that double-cylinder deadbolt. Thank you, Mom. Best $20 I ever spent. This happened in August 2014 when I was 19. And whilst I have a pretty bad memory, I remember what happened very well. I'd been out in London for the evening and missed the last train home, as you do. I decided to wait out the next 3.5 hours till the first morning train at the station. This was before I carried around a portable charger with me, so I shot off a text to my family to let them know when to pick me up before my phone died. I sat on the bench, waited, and the guy next to me started up a conversation. I was a bit apprehensive, but we actually had a decent chat about life and whatever. Got on my train at 5 a.m. The train heading out of London, as you might have guessed, was deserted. I was sat in the window seat, trying not to pass out from boredom, having been sat around all night sobering up with not even a phone to play games on. Maybe 15 minutes in, I hear someone come down from another carriage, and suddenly they're sat next to me, blocking me in my seat. A bit of a panic sets in already, but I stay quiet. And now they're talking to me. Some tall guy, maybe 5 to 15 years older than me, is asking me my name. I'd have been a bit less worried if they were some friendly-looking drunk dude, but this guy seemed stone-cold sober, and the vibes he gave off were not friendly. But me being me, I replied with my fake name. Then he asked me where I live. Only so much I can lie here, given the train will stop there in 15 minutes, but I say the stop next door. At some point, he asked me if I have a boyfriend. Of course, I say yes, since that usually puts creeps off.
not this guy. He then asks for my number. I press on, saying my boyfriend wouldn't like that. He doesn't need to know, he says. I say he would know because I tell him everything. It can be our secret. I'm getting serious creep vibes. At this point, I can tell my polite strategy isn't working, and I can't even leave because he's blocking me in my seat. I tell him I don't want to give him my number anyway, and that's when he says, "You need to cooperate." Chills run down my spine. This isn't just a drunk creep. I'm stuck here, nowhere to run, no phone, on a deserted train at 5 a.m. At this point, I'm freaking out and I start crying and half scream at him to leave me alone. He asks me why I'm reacting so weirdly. There's no problem here. I just need to cooperate with what he says. My memory is a bit fuzzy here since I was freaking out quite a bit. But by some miracle, there happened to be some other guy right at the opposite end of the carriage tucked away. He must have heard me yelling and told the creep to leave me alone. This creep starts getting belligerent, repeating there's no problem, to stay out of it. Then by another miracle, a ticket inspector shows up. Little middle-aged lady steps into the carriage with a bunch of yelling, me crying in my seat, and by this point, creep is finally given up. Yells back at the other dude and the ticket lady, telling them to stay out of it again. I'm just being rude, and he wasn't interested in anyways, and takes off down the train and out at the next stop. At least, I think he got out. The ticket lady asked if I was okay, and that was the end of that. It took 5 years for me to dare to take another morning train. Again. This happened when I was 19. I'm a hairdresser at Great Clips, and I see a lot of people every day. I was also 7 months pregnant at that point. I look like I had a basketball on my belly. I'm 5'2" and thin. This particular day was a Saturday. It was extremely busy. It was right before picture day, so back-to-back-to-back children's haircuts. There were a lot of families in the lobby waiting for haircuts. I called the next name, and it was a dad of the kid getting their haircut next to me. He had 2 older children, a boy and a girl, and they looked to be about 7 and 9. I escorted them to my chair, introduced myself, and started to ask the normal questions we ask to find out what kind of haircut they want. He asked for a 2 on the sides and back, which is about 1/4 of an inch, and finger length on top. His hair was kind of shaggy looking, so it was a lot of length taken off. I start cutting his hair and making small talk. He immediately starts asking about my pregnancy, and as a naive young woman and first-time mom, I excitedly started to answer his questions. His kid that was getting his haircut next to me was asking for approval from Dad, then waited in the lobby. The dude's demeanor changed 100% from Great Dad to Russell Williams. If you don't know who Russell Williams is, look him up. But anyways, he starts telling me how much pregnant women turned him on, and how the round of my belly arouses him. By this point, I have only cut the sides and back with the clippers that were like 4 inches on top, really long, and I didn't say anything. I just blushed extremely hard because it was weird and I was really creeped out. I'm in shock standing there looking down at my shears, turned away from him, but I could see him in the mirror, vice versa. I turned around to face him and he said, "Please, let me buy you breast milk." I took the cape off of him and kicked him out and his kids. They got their haircuts for free that day. My manager was cutting hair next to me and she heard everything for herself. He tried to come into the shop again about a month later, and I was still pregnant. The best part is, the mother of the kids and wife to the weird man thought she was going to come over to my salon and cuss me out. I pulled her in the back office and told her about the experience. He left with a half haircut, confused kids, and an even angrier, hopefully ex-wife. This happened a few hours ago during my night shift, and for some reason was so disturbing to me. I'm a police officer in a big city, so I've had to deal with some pretty awful sights and smells while doing this job, usually on a daily basis. This, however, was something even more unusual. There's a large homeless population in this city, with mental health and substance abuse being common issues among this population. It isn't uncommon to see a homeless person suffering from mental illness acting strange late at night, and if they aren't hurting themselves or anyone else, that's fine with me. It's around 11 p.m. and I'm stopped at a red light on a very quiet and dark street. I'm the only car on the road. I look to my right, just observing the street, and see a skinny man in ragged clothing on the sidewalk with their feet planted on the ground, belly arched toward the sky, and their hands planted on the ground over their head. I thought, interesting. While holding this position, the person snaps their head towards me, then looks back toward the sky, and proceeds to do the freaking exorcist spider walk up the sidewalk at a speed which seemed like it was the only way they walked. I immediately thought, WTF, as this man navigated the sidewalk in horror movie fashion. I have no idea why this style of walking is so disturbing, but dear God, did it bring back some childhood memories of the Exorcist movie, scaring the life out of me, and I never did find out exactly why he walked like that. So it was March 17th, 2020. I went with 4 friends to the sewers. 3 of them were drunk. Let's call them John, Jim, and Jack. Me and we'll call him Joe were sober. We were going to get weed from a dispensary. We usually take this weird concrete tunnel that goes under the freeway, spits out 3 buildings away from it. It's about 3/5 of a mile long. You can see a small ball of light at the other end from where you enter, either side. And no one has ever been living there before, nor has anyone ever stayed under there. There is a homeless community about 1.5 miles away from there, too. My friend Jim enters the tunnel first, then me, then Joe. The rest followed. We were all bellowing and laughing from stupid jokes and references, just friends being friends. We were walking for a bit when we heard incoherent growling and grumbles. John and Jack immediately assume it's a ghost. Joe suspected mountain lion, actually very likely due to the area. I agreed. Jim just wanted to punch it for giving him a startle. We all fumbled for our phones and started shining the lights down the tunnel. Jim yelled out at it. As we were shuffling around, I hit my foot against something metal and hollow. I shined my light and saw it was a broken pipe about 1.5 feet long. I grabbed it because, possibility of a mountain lion, I thought. Maybe I can use it to defend myself. It had a jagged end, perfect other edge. Of course I'm using the jagged edge as the weapon side. I feel a bit safer, but still feel a bad gut feeling. Jim continues to yell towards it, then its growling became mumbling. Jill yells at whoever it is to screw off. We hear some glass break, and then from the darkness came a random person running at us. Before I can even see what he was going to do, he smashed the rest of an already broken bottle onto Jim. Me being a foot behind him immediately respond with a swift swing at this person's head, making a perfect connected shot. The person, I believe, hit the wall and flopped down like a bear after a long day. I dropped the pipe, wrapped my arm around Jim, and we all booked it out back the way we came. We got out and find the extent of Jim's face was seriously messed up and needed help now, and no hesitation we called 911. Ambulance took Jim, cops took our stories and lots of photos. I had 2 types of blood on my hands, this random guy's and Jim's. Now with evidence of self-defense and multiple accounts, it came clear. This person was drunk and high on meth. He had a kitchen chef knife in his other hand, and his hand that held the bottle was bloody. This presumably homeless person basically slapped the life out of my friend with the broken bottle. Was told that the adhesive labels were the only thing holding the bottle together. When it made contact, the person opened his hand to slap, sliced his own hand up. The pipe made contact with his temple and jaw. The momentum from him running carried into the tunnel wall where they believe it finished him off, smashing his nose first into it. Only the city didn't try to do anything, and it was an easy win with a public defender. Thankfully, I was able to get off with self-defense, but it was a very scary and complicated matter. I'm just happy it was a person and not a mountain lion, because most likely, we'd all be dead. To give context, I'm a 25-year-old male. I started a job at a company that makes lenses for glasses, and immediately I was introduced to Nate, an awkward guy around my age that seemed like he had good intentions. He was nice enough, but I figured that most people humored him when it came to talking to him. I was convinced that he was on the spectrum in the realms of Asperger's. I've had friends in the past who have Asperger's, and I didn't really mind. Besides, we seemed to like the same things, including Dungeons and Dragons. My D&D group was small, and we wanted more people, and knowing that he was into D&D, I invited him to come join. My now wife, then fiancé, immediately grew uncomfortable when he came into our home to make his character, and when it came to actually playing sessions, another girl at our table also expressed that she was uncomfortable. I didn't feel great about it, so after 3 to 4 sessions, we kicked him out and continued playing. But I still had to see him at work, which led to him always acting sad around me, but I wasn't going to give in. Eventually, I kept telling him that I was starting another group and he could join that one, yada yada yada. His pity party was starting to annoy me, so I said whatever to keep him at bay. One day at work, he had the day off, and the following weekend, not me or my coworkers saw this as strange, but then when Monday came, he still didn't show up. Tuesday, no show. This was very unlike him because he was practically a teacher's pet. Soon, one of my coworkers was moving around the warehouse with a phone in her hand, stopping people and sharing the news. Nate had been arrested in North Dakota as he had attempted to meet up with an underage girl. We were all in disbelief because that's the first feeling that hits you. You don't want to believe somebody like that could live in your town, lest work right beside you. Indeed, he was in contact with a minor over the internet and set up a meeting at a park with the intention of doing some pretty nefarious things. The police were tipped off as a teacher just happened to see the messages on the girl's phone. I nearly puked when I heard the news. He was in my home and made comments about my kids being so cute, especially my daughter, which definitely made me even more sick. He would talk to me sometimes about wanting a girlfriend and how he was just waiting for the right one to come along. Someone in his church group, and now it scares me to think how old this girl was. One of my friends at work mentioned how he went to install a washer and dryer at Nate's house, and when looking around, he was yelled at by Nate to not go downstairs. Not in a, "oh, that's my room, I'd prefer no one to go up there" type of vibe, more like, "there's something up there I don't want you to see" type of vibe. He was arrested and put into prison, like I said, and remains there to this day for as far as I'm concerned. Just goes to show you that you really can't know everybody, and that's what is truly scary. This incident happened when I was 14 years old. I'm now 23. My dad was at the time a whitewater raft guide and would often be out of town during peak seasons, leaving me, my older sister of 7 years, and my stepmother at her home nestled in front of the Cherokee National Forest in East Tennessee. It was later in the evening of a Friday night, and me and my sister decided we wanted to go get Subway before they closed, so we asked our stepmom and she said sure. So my sister and I get in the car and head to Subway, which was only a couple of miles away. As we pull out from a stop sign at an intersection, I noticed a car get behind us. Not unusual, just that we lived in a sleepy small town, so maybe we knew them. Anyways, I didn't think much about it. We arrive at a Subway, which is in a shabby shopping center where an old grocery store was that was right behind the restaurant. It's dark at this point, and the car pulls into the dark, unlit parking lot where a lot of local high schoolers hung out. I quickly thought it was just another teen hanging out. And boy, was I wrong. We finished our order and leave with our food in our hands, and I noticed the car's headlights flick on as we're opening our car doors. I then mentioned it to my sister and she shrugged it off, so we drove away from Subway to the exit of the parking lot, and the unknown driver of this white Ford Probe floored it across the parking lot, running over the curb to keep up behind us. This definitely scared my older sister. There's multiple ways to get to our house, so we took the more intricate and confusing way to someone who doesn't know where they're going. We were scared and just wanted to get home, and the vehicle kept up with us until a few turns before our neighborhood. As I mentioned before, we lived on top of a hill and the forest was behind us, but in front of us were 3 streets, forming a valley-like structure. We get closer to our house, and since we lost the follower, we figured we were just being paranoid. We get into our driveway and walk inside and kind of jokingly tell our story to our stepmom, and in the midst of this story, we see headlights from a car in front of our house. My sister looks out the window. It's the white Probe. We're scared at this point because this person either was very aware of where we lived or was a neighbor we weren't aware of. They sit outside our house for what seems like a really long time, and before my stepmom gets her phone to call my father to ask if he would have any ideas as to who this was, they drive off. Odd, right? We sit and eat our food, uncomfortable but trying to shrug it off. We see the old vehicle outside again, and 4 more times later my father was called. He wasn't sure who it was, but assured us that we were okay, that we had firearms in the house and we lived in a safe neighborhood. That's all he could do through a phone call, and in Florida. Maybe it was someone who was lost, or thought that they knew my sister. We didn't know. My stepmom has to work the next day, and since it was the weekend, me and my sister slept in late. We woke up at around 11 a.m. and decided to play some video games. Shortly after we started playing, there's a knock on our front door. Nobody should be knocking. We don't answer. It keeps going and is getting harder. Now from our living room you could see into the kitchen. My dad, being a nature lover, had built a ceiling-to-floor window in the kitchen to sip coffee and watch nature. This is important to remember. The knocking subsides, and my sister is trying to find her Motorola flip phone to call our stepmom and police. As she's doing that, we both see this man peering inside our large kitchen window, and as we make eye contact, he turns and walks up the hill into the national forest. The police arrive several minutes later, and so does our stepmom, who was also beside herself. The police ask if we knew who this could possibly be and why whoever this was would have left a note on our door. A note on our door, I thought. To her, reading the poorly written note that was written on a torn corner of a piece of sticky pad paper that read, "I wasn't planning on hurting anyone." We told the officers what happened and that he went up the hill into the forest, so they did a quick scan and said they didn't see anyone, and that we really just need to keep everything locked up for a while, be vigilant, and if we experience this again, to give them a call. Thank God, we moved shortly thereafter this event, for other unrelated reasons. Let me just start by adding a little info for context. I'm a 29-year-old female, but often get mistaken for being much younger than I am. Usually people mistake me for being anywhere between 13 to 15 years old, as I have a baby face and I'm like 5'2", which I usually use to my advantage if I don't want to talk to someone. Yesterday, Saturday, I went to the mall to pick up a new dress since my cousin is getting married next month. Small ceremony at her house, you know the deal. I wasn't picking anything too fancy since the wedding isn't super big or traditional, but dresses I thought would look nice still. As I picked the last of my 5 options and made my way to the dressing room, I was approached by a woman who asked how old I was. I told her not to worry about it and went to try things on. I picked out a dress I liked and exited the dressing room. When I returned the unwanted dresses to an employee, I was again approached by the same woman who again decided it was her business to ask how old I was. Again, I told her not to worry about it and continued on to find some cute shoes to match my dress. In the shoes section, I was approached yet again by this woman, who all of a sudden decided I was a child, and then proceeded to go on a rant about how 12-year-olds shouldn't be left in the mall alone, and where is your mother? I, as nicely as I could in the moment, let her know I am an adult, that I was fine, and could she please leave me alone. This, I guess, upset her, and she reported me to a security guard as a lost child. When approached by security, I answered all his questions and even showed him my ID to prove I am an adult and let him know she'd been bothering me. As far as I know, he told her I was an adult and to leave me alone. The rest of the day, whenever I went in the mall, this woman followed me into every store I went to. Finally, I got annoyed enough to just leave, where this woman followed me to my car, where she proceeded to tell me to get into her car and she would drive me home. I let her know again that I am an adult. I had my own car and was going to drive myself home. I then got in my car and drove around for a good hour before going home, trying to make sure that she didn't follow me. I have no idea what was wrong with this woman. For background, I'm an 18-year-old female in my first semester of college. I've always seemed to get a lot of attention from guys and tend to attract some pretty creepy ones for some reason. Probably because I'm overly nice and have a hard time just telling people to buzz off even when I get bad vibes from them. Anyway, I decided to get Tinder over the summer due to quarantine. All of my classes for college are online, so I'm not able to meet many people. I thought if I got Tinder, I could get to know some people from my university and maybe even go on some dates. I got a lot of matches. Some guys were really nice and cool to talk to, and then I obviously got some people just wanting to hook up, which I'm not into, but nothing too abnormal. That's what Tinder is mainly for, after all. After a few months, I ended up matching with a guy from out of state. We matched because he was in the area for work. He was 8 years older than me, but I didn't mind. First red flag right there. He seemed pretty nice, and he asked for my snap, so I gave it to him. We talked a little, and within a couple of days, he became very clingy and obsessive. I have an extremely busy major, and most of my time is taken up from school. Because of this, I'm not always on my phone and cannot answer messages right away. If I didn't answer for an hour or two, he would message me again and again. He said things like, "Why won't you talk to me? Are you seeing someone else? I wouldn't be surprised. You're so beautiful. And I need you." I thought this was very strange as I just started talking to him and we clearly weren't seeing each other. I explained to him that I am very busy with school and it was nothing personal. He said he respected that and we continued talking. Obviously, that didn't last very long or I wouldn't be writing this story. He continued to text me constantly, telling me he needed me and asking why I was ignoring him. He started talking about driving 2 hours to see me. I was weirded out, but I assumed that he was just lonely and desperate. I felt bad, so I tried to brush it off and answer when I could because he didn't really do anything too concerning. Stupid, I know. This continued for a few weeks, and I started getting extremely annoyed. I had a bad gut feeling about this guy. He started talking very sensually, and I told him I wasn't into that. He apologized and said that he would stop. He didn't, and no surprise there, so I started ignoring his messages. He apologized, and I called him out for it. He continuously apologized, and I just left him on read. He started Snapchatting me pictures and constantly messaging me, so I unadded him. And then he texted me with another apology and said that he had hoped that he could take me on that date we talked about, even though I never expressed interest in going on a date. I ignored that message too and moved on with my life. About 2 weeks later, I got a message that simply said, "I'm sorry." I ignored that too. He didn't message me after that, and it soon slipped my mind once again. Later that week, I had a dream of him breaking into my house and attempting to kidnap me. And I started thinking about it again, so I tried looking him up on Instagram. He didn't have an Instagram, which I didn't think was too weird because I know some people who only use Facebook, so I tried looking him up on there. He didn't have Facebook either, and that was kind of weird. Most people have one or the other, if not both. I thought it was so strange that this guy didn't have any form of social media besides Snapchat and Tinder. I wondered if he used a fake name. Then I decided to try one last thing. I searched his name on Google, and what I found made my blood run cold. The first thing that came up was an article for his arrest back in January with his mugshot, and he was arrested for lewd images of children on his laptop. They found several photos of underage girls on his phone, and he was released on bail a few days later. I was absolutely disgusted. This man was a predator, and he was free to do as he pleased and prey on younger girls. When I think about it, my guess is that he saw that I was 18 and thought he could still get something from a younger girl without getting into trouble because I was legally an adult. I'm not stupid enough to send any revealing photos or videos. I'm so glad I stopped being so nice and listened to my gut when things progressed. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't, and I wonder if my dream was a sign for me to look into who he was. It still creeps me out that he was so obsessed with me when I didn't talk to him for very long at all. A pretty short tale that will forever be burned into my skull. My mom had me super young at 16, and I guess after I was born she became estranged from her paternal side of the family. I've heard various stories of how it all went down, and it's a story for another day. Today I am in North Carolina with my mother, but I have started to get to know my maternal grandfather and my grandmother, who are wonderful people. A couple of years ago, a cousin who's in his 50s or 60s maybe found me on Facebook. I'm not sure if my mom told him about me because my grandfather isn't too fond of this particular cousin, so I'm not sure how I was found. So, gather round and whip out your banjos, because here's the Facebook message that started out friendly enough, but it eventually made me want to change my entire name and move to another country. This cousin responds, "Hey Katie, I'm John. I'm in SoCal and wanted to say hi to you. You're my family's second cousin. How are you? Are you still in the SoCal area?" "Hey, yeah, I'm still living in SoCal. Are you here visiting?" "Yeah, I'm actually in Irvine. I'd love to hug you." "Oh, nice. I live right on the city line. How long are you here for?" "Actually, leaving in the morning at 8:55. Are you working today?" "Yeah, I'm at work, and I have plans tonight with my roommate." "Wish I remembered you were out here earlier in the week. My son and his family go to bed at around 9. I'd love to see you, girl. Where do you work?" "I work about 30 minutes away from Irvine." "Okay, beautiful. I know you're related to me, but dang, you're fine, girl. I love your picture with the angel shirt on." "I'm sorry, what? This is a really odd conversation. You can't be that old. You're only what, 27? Your statement just made me physically ill." "Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Maybe I can see you next visit." "I don't really feel comfortable doing that, and I don't feel comfortable with this interaction." "You shouldn't act like that towards family." "What? Well, maybe don't be an incestuous creep then, yeah? Have a nice flight home." And then I blocked him. So yeah, what a time to be alive. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/LetsReadOfficial, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured in the next videos. And join a live stream to catch an invite to my Discord. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation form and save huge on data, located anywhere you listen to podcasts. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends. And remember, vegans, let's not meet again. That's funny.